So you have less than a month to prepare for OET. No problem, because in this video, I'll tell you how to prepare for OET in 30 days. If you're watching this video, then you probably know when your test is, and that's a good start. And you probably know the scores you need to achieve, which is also a good start. But do you know what your current scores are for each of the OET sections? That's a critical first step. If not, you need to find out your current level. You're basically dealing with two issues here. The first issue is time, when's your test? And the second issue is points. Where are you in relation to the score you need? This is the gap that you're trying to close. Now, it's worth pointing out that in 30 days, you can't learn much English language, but you can certainly improve your understanding of the test, and that will certainly help to boost your scores. One thing you might find really helpful is the OET Get Started checklist. This important checklist will help you get started and keep you on track from beginning to success. Download it from the description below. The best way to find out your current level is by taking the actual OET test. And if you've already done this, then fine. But if you're a first-time OET test taker, you don't want to spend all that money and waste all that time taking the OET official test. You should take a mock test. There are a couple of important reasons to take a mock test. First and foremost, you'll find out your current level or thereabouts. Secondly, you'll also find out your weak points so you know what to focus on. Thirdly, you'll find out what it's like to take the test. In other words, you'll have test simulation, which is an important experience to have. So you now know A, when your test date is, and B, what your current scores are. You should then focus on your areas of weakness. Just before we look at each section of the test and how you can prepare for them, imagine that you've just received the results of your mock test or your official test, and let's say you're aiming for 350 in each of the 4 skills, but this is what you received. Listening, 400, great. Reading, 330, short by 20 points. Writing, 340, I just missed by 10 points. Speaking, 370, not bad. So you can see here that you need to focus on reading and writing, but you also probably need to focus on speaking as well, considering it's so close to the minimum score you need and things can change on test day. What you really need to know though is which particular subtest are you making mistakes in. It's one thing to know which skill you need help with, but which particular subtest accounted for those lost points. This is critical. Let's look at each of the 4 parts of the test together and each of the particular subtests. We'll start with listening. Listening consists of 3 subtests, Part A, Part B, and Part C. These subtests get increasingly more difficult. So A is not too bad, B is a bit harder, and C is, well, I think it's the toughest part of the test. Let's look at them each one by one, starting with Listening Part A. Listening Part A tests your ability to listen for specific information, particular words or phrases from a conversation. If you're a practicing medical professional, which you probably are, then you have had or probably heard many conversations in English between medical professionals and patients. If not, then you need to find them on the internet and you need to focus on what the patient is saying and particularly keywords and phrases that the patient says, because the answers for listening part A will always come from the patient. Keep in mind that the OET listening part A audios that you hear on test day are not authentic. So they'll be different from what you hear in real conversations from the internet. So I think doing a combination of authentic listening and test practice will be key here. Let's talk about listening part B. Listening part B tests you on your ability to listen for gist, detail, reason, next steps, etc. in little short 40 to 50 second audio files where you'll hear a single speaker or 2 speakers. Now, for listening part B, you can't really find anything authentic on the internet to practice with. These questions are tightly constructed, and each question has a specific listening focus. As mentioned, listening for overall meaning or gist, listening for a specific detail, listening for a next step or a purpose, etc. Your best bet is to do test practice, but I want to give you a warning. Not all test questions are created equally. Some, if not many, of the test questions that you'll find on the internet are junk. They are not created to the same standard that the OET official ones are. And I don't just mean in terms of audio quality, I mean what the questions themselves are like and what they're testing for. And this goes for all OET questions that you find on the internet. So just be aware that free often means cheap, if not nasty, and certainly not necessarily helpful. Let's talk about listening part C. Listening part C tests your ability to follow a presentation or an interview on a healthcare topic. You will need to answer multiple choice questions relating to meaning, detail, attitude, opinions, and more. Listening part C is tough, but the good news is that they are pretty similar to the medical lectures or interview podcasts that you can find all over the internet. So please do listen to those in any spare moment you get leading up to test day, while you're driving your car or while you're taking a bath, whenever you possibly can. But it's one thing to understand what's going on orally. It's another thing to be able to read and answer comprehension questions as you listen. So test practice is essential here as well. Listening recap. Cool, so we've covered listening, and the short of it is find authentic audios on the internet and listen, 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 but also do concentrated test practice. And when you do concentrated test practice, slow down and even stop if you get an answer wrong and find out why you got it wrong. Refer to the transcript if you can and read along while listening. A lot of people have a preparation philosophy of quantity over quality. That is, they think the more practice tests you do before test day, the better off you will be. I don't think it works like that. It's about the attention that you pay to the test materials you practice with. Listen deeply, stop, read the transcript, analyze what's going on. And the same applies to reading. OET reading consists of 3 subtests. Of course, if you only have 30 days to prepare, then you want to do lots of reading leading up to your test day. But what kind of reading should you do? Let's take a look at how to rapidly prepare for reading part A. Reading part A tests your ability to scan text and to find key information. It's not about deep reading and comprehension. Remember, you only get 15 minutes to answer 20 questions, so it's all about speed. The texts that you will see are similar to the text types that you see in medical journals or on medical websites, like this one. A good way to prepare for this part of the test is to practice scan reading. That is, instead of reading deeply, you want to scan your eyes across the text and look for information. Pay attention to the headings and the subheadings and see if you can locate keywords. Of course, good quality test practice is key here. This test kind of feels weird when you first do it, but I think after practicing about 3 or 4 of them, you'll get the idea and you'll know how to do it. Of course, I highly recommend the E2 language methods here. Let's look at reading part B. Reading part B uses little short texts from hospitals or clinics about how to operate a piece of machinery or how to lift a patient or something like this. These are little texts that you would find in your workplace. They're quite technical to understand, and this time you do need to read very carefully, and you have enough time to. If I had 30 days to prepare for OET, one of the ways that I would prepare would be to start reading the little texts around your hospital or clinic. Perhaps they're stuck on the wall, or perhaps they're in emails from your HR team, who knows. That'll get you in the mood. But again, nothing beats quality test prep materials, and there's nothing worse than poor reading materials. Anyway, let's look at reading part C. The texts in reading part C are very similar to online magazine articles. They're less technical and less academic than journal articles. They're more like something the general public would read who have a special interest in health. So there is some technicality, but overall it's very readable. The internet is littered with these types of magazines, and if I were you, I'd be doing lots of reading leading up to my exam, along with some high quality test prep questions. And I do them slowly because quality is better than quantity. That's what it's all about. Or if you can do both quantity and quality, that would be even better. Anyway, let's do a reading recap. So obviously doing lots of reading leading up to test day is important. You probably don't have enough time to build vocab, but you certainly have enough time to increase the speed and depth at which you read. This, peppered with high quality questions and methods, is the way to go. Cool, so we've talked about listening and we've talked about reading, the receptive skills. Let's talk about producing language, and we'll start with speaking. In speaking, you perform a couple of role plays where you play the role of the medical professional. Because you only have 30 days to prepare, you don't really have enough time to work on your linguistic skills like pronunciation and word stress, etc. But you certainly have enough time to learn and improve your clinical communication skills. Your clinical skills refer to the way that you interact with the patient during the role play. In fact, you're scored in two main ways for speaking: your language skills and your clinical skills. You can rapidly improve your clinical skills, whereas improving your language skills might take longer than 30 days. I highly recommend checking out the scoring videos on e2language.com on how to improve your clinical communication skills, and maybe joining one of our live classes. And I also highly recommend doing some simulated exam practice. You want to get an experience of what it's like to do role plays with professionals. Your friends and family might be helpful, but you kind of want to experience the ritual of doing a role play. You also want to experience the nervousness as well, get a feel for it, and know that you'll be fine and you'll do well on test day. Speaking recap. In short, learn how you're scored. The more that you understand the scoring, the more you can perform in a way that the examiners will be happy with, and do some real simulated practice to get a feel for what it will be like on test day. Alrighty, lucky last, let's talk about writing. In writing, if you're a doctor or a nurse, you'll write a referral, discharge, or transfer letter based on a set of case notes. You've probably written these types of letters before in your workplace, but the way that you write the OET letter might differ from what you're used to. Much like speaking, you need to learn how you're scored. So you're scored according to criteria. The criteria are like a checklist that the examiners use when they're marking your writing. You can either satisfy the criteria or not. So the more that you write according to the criteria, the higher your score will be. While the criteria require you to have good written English skills, you can certainly maximize your scores in 30 days if you understand them deeply. For example, case note selection is a critical aspect of your letter. That is, incorporating certain case notes and ignoring other case notes. You can learn how to do this very quickly. I guess a big question is, how much can you improve your fundamental writing skills in just 30 days? One thing I would highly recommend is getting feedback on at least one letter before test day. The reason is you might be making silly mistakes, and you may be able to rectify these silly mistakes very quickly. Either way, quality feedback from an expert will tell you what you're doing right and wrong. Writing recap. I don't think you can improve your grammar and vocab much in 30 days, but you can learn how you're scored by understanding the scoring criteria. And if you write to the criteria, then you can certainly improve your chances of success. Okay, so we've now covered all of the OET subtests and talked about what you can do in 30 days to get the scores you need. Now, everything that I've recommended is on e2language.com. Live classes, writing feedback, mock tests, speaking feedback, practice questions, and much, much more. So if you want to save yourself time and probably money, then sign up and get started straight away. And don't forget to download the Get Started checklist in the description below, and good luck.